I remember when the PSP came out around 2006. One game that really stood out was Ridge Racer. Today we're going to be looking at Ridge Racer 2, which is somewhat of a director's cut of the original Ridge Racer, which was a launch title for the PSP, often which Namco used to do whenever there was a new Sony console. They would follow up with a Ridge Racer game exclusive to the console. But I was blown away seeing my cousin owning this game when he bought his PSP, thinking, look how rich the graphics look, look how amazing the gameplay is. And I truly understood that this thing is a powerhouse. The PSP can run games that we expect to be running at a console level. This isn't a screenshot of a game running on the PlayStation 2 or a console plugged into a television. It's on a handheld, and in 2006 this didn't make any sense. I mean, just look at the reflections, the speed, the blur when the nitrous goes, and I was surprised, I was taken aback to see how amazing this game looked, and handheld games weren't supposed to look like this. So how did Ridge Racer 2 pull it off, and more importantly, does it stand up today? I still remember the first time I booted the Ridge Racer game on the PSP, and I was simply mesmerized at how amazing this game looked. With Ridge Racer 2, you got an amazing cutscene which really highlights the power of the PSP and that it can deliver on console quality gaming on a portable handheld. I mean, just look at how gorgeous this intro cutscene looks. But up until 2006, handheld gaming was always coming with an understanding and a stigma that you were going to get a scaled down version of something bigger, that like maybe on a console. It was almost as if you're expecting a compromise. But then Namco came out with Ridge Racer and Ridge Racer 2 in this instance, which I'd like to talk about today. The race started and I just stared at the screen. It just felt too good to be true, with the lighting on the cars, the smoothness of the movement, the sense of speed. It just didn't feel like it was made for a handheld. It felt too good to be true, and it felt like the console gaming had finally escaped the television and landed in your hand. And that moment genuinely changed my expectations for portable systems. Ridge Racer 2 wasn't just impressive, but it was proof that handheld gaming didn't have to mean to compromise anymore. But nostalgia is quite powerful, and today we're going to look at this properly to see whether Ridge Racer 2 earns its legacy or simply benefits from memory. From a visual standpoint, this game was incredible, and the car models were quite clean and efficiently detailed. I felt that the reflections across the side body panels were quite convincing, and sometimes you get sparks that provide physical feedback when you push too hard against the barriers. Most importantly, the frame rate did not drop most of the time when I played this game, especially during high speed sections, and in this kind of game, speed is everything here. The game uses long sight lines, wide track design, and aggressive motion blur to amplify velocity. Even today the art direction holds up because it focuses on clarity rather than realism. I felt that it was quite stylized, not dated, and that distinction is why it still looks good nearly 20 years later. The PSP was inundated with a plethora of racing games, and Ridge Racer 2 might appear simple on the surface, but it is an arcade racer, and that's what it's truly good at. It uses a mechanic where you have to drift to build nitrous. A lot of the tracks are designed for you to make incredibly complex turns with long drifts, inspired by Japanese drift racing, of course. When you drift, you build nitrous, and you can use the nitrous to win, and you can use it in various different ways. For instance, you could use it to pick up speed on a straight line to catch up with the opposition. You could use it to build up speed and prevent the loss of speed and momentum when you're taking in a corner or drifting. You could even use it to try and pip an opponent near the finishing line. You could even build it up across the 3 different bars it has to just really go all out. So it does add its own little tactical decision making during the middle of a race. Can you defend a position with small bursts or save everything for one decisive overtake? The cars themselves escalate in difficulty. Early on, the speed of the game is quite slow with the Class 1 cars, but they're forgiving and stable. But later on, as the game picks up with speed and you unlock faster cars, you are going to need to have smoother input and disciplined drift control. So sometimes you can veer off into oversteering, and that can be a bit of a problem, especially when you hit the barriers and the car just grinds to a halt and you can easily get overtaken by the opposition. But I feel like there's a deliberate design choice, and it separates Ridge Racer from simulation-focused competitors, and this style of racing, this style of arcade racing is the hook for Ridge Racer. and one that I feel is sorely missed. Mastery of the game comes from the rhythm and from understanding how much angle is too much, and from knowing when to commit to a massive slide and when to correct. So it is accessible at first, but it does become genuinely gratifying and satisfying when you progress through the game at the higher levels of play. The amount of content in Ridge Racer 2 is quite impressive, with extensive race tours, dozens of unlockable cars, multiple classes and challenge tiers, and for a handheld title this feels complete. But yeah, as you can see, the menus here, it looks very clean, and you can see that the main mode is the World Tour mode, where you have multiple different events across many different tracks, and from there you can pick which track to go on, and you can go to the menu where you can pick your car. It looks quite sleek, and you have 25 different colorways and options. As I did say, I feel like the variety of cars is a bit lacking because they are quite rinse and repeat, but it does offer quite a lot of things as well, so such as wireless play. You can also have an arcade mode, which is almost like an outrun type level, where not only are you trying to finish the race, but there's a bit of a timer and checkpoints which adds to the timer, which adds to more time to finish the race. Duel, which is 1v1 with a computer opponent. Survival mode, which is where you play across a map with 4 other cars, and whoever finishes last gets eliminated. So it did have quite a lot of things, and the coolest thing about Ridge Racer 2 was that it built on the original Ridge Racer that was released on the PSP, with a few more additional tracks and music from original Ridge Racer titles, so it added more to what already was considered a complete package. So progression in Ridge Racer 2 involves finishing the individual tours, which allows you to unlock better and faster cars. You're also treated with a quite pleasant and cool cutscene showing you unlocking the car, and I think that just adds to the flair of Ridge Racer really. Adding on to the gameplay of Ridge Racer, the inclusion of classic courses transforms this into almost like a curative archive of classic Ridge Racer games and Ridge Racer design philosophy. And I feel that the philosophy was built on the prospect of flow basically. Corners were engineered across the tracks for sustained drifts, straights are positioned to reward boost timing, and there was also a lot of verticality and elevation to subtly change the vehicle balance mid-slide. Unlike simulation races that emphasize braking zones and technical precision, Ridge Racer is a game that prioritizes rhythm and timing. You're not fighting the car, but you're also just shaping the momentum. When you lose speed, it is quite punishing, such as when you hit one of the barriers. When you maintain a perfect arc for a turn, even with boost, it feels quite rewarding immediately and very satisfying. Aside from the gameplay and the cars that gives Ridge Racer its own personality, one of the biggest things is the track variety that also adds to the personality of the game, that gives me sort of a drive to get back, pick up the PSP and go back to this game. The gameplay you can see here is on a very short track from Ridge Racer 4, but it feels like you're in some sunny village in Spain, just tearing it up, drifting quite quickly across this very short track. The Crystal Coast Highway is one of my favourite tracks, where you get a wonderful vista, a sea right beside you as you're taking control of a very complicated track. Initially you're going up some verticality here, but as you drift inwards you can see, I don't think this visual conveys it well, but in the background you can see just a faint glimpse of the sea. As you continue going through this track you pass a lighthouse, and when you drive towards the southern portions of the map you get exposed to more of this beautiful seaside. So it really does give some sort of additional personality where it's just fun, and just imagining myself going on holiday, driving across this racetrack, across, I don't know, Lanzarote or Monte Carlo. That's the kind of vibes I get when I play on a map like this. I love how the variation in the elevation is presented in the Mythical Coast track, where not only are you next to some sort of a Greek island, probably given the ruins where you're going by, but there's so much elevation in the track. Sometimes you are having to use your drift just to climb up the track to pick up speed, sometimes you're having to use the drift on downward turns to gain even more speed. So again, another example of variety where it's not just a simple plain track, you have lots of winding ups and downs racing across the level. So another example of how there's so much track variety here. Hurricane Skyway is one of the tracks that is one of the many ones to represent industrial city-based maps and driving. I didn't like this map so much because of how narrow some of the lanes were, and it was very easy to smash yourself into the barriers. I had problems playing on this track on PlayStation 1's Ridge Racer 4, which is an example of one of the more popular tracks I believe that have been imported into Ridge Racer 2 to enjoy. I just love how the planes fly by, which just adds more flair and precision and power for the PSP to display. That was so not necessary, but it was quite cool that they've had it, and throughout many of these tracks you do see these interesting little things that just adds to the personality, that just adds more enjoyment to the game. All these quick moments that you can expect on a console, such as planes flying by, so I thought that was quite a cool touch. Ridge Racer 2 came packed with so much more. City night courses with lots of neon lights across the city courses in the game. They were drenched in glowing billboards, illuminated windows and reflective asphalt, and visually they felt amplify the speed. The reflections stretch across the road surface as you drift through a corner, and the light smears across the bodywork of your car, and it creates this constant sensation of movement even when you're holding a stable racing line. It's not realistic urban design, and I felt like these night courses were exaggerated for impact, and that's exactly why it worked, and that's exactly why I love these nighttime courses. The game does a wonderful job highlighting and showcasing these tracks in the pre-race cutscenes, where you're given snapshots of the general outlook of the track. But one of the biggest things that Ridge Racer games have, including in Ridge Racer 2, is the track variety and the music, the official soundtrack. It was a mixture of electronic dance music, chill tracks, EDM, a couple of rock songs put in, but this game had a lot of classics from back in the original Ridge Racer games, and my favourite one was Moving in Circles, which was the intro song for Ridge Racer 4. It kind of gives me late 90s, early 90s vibes. I don't know why, I was kind of around from that era, so I could definitely relate to it, and if I'm in a mood, I definitely want to put this on, and it gets me pumped for the race. So you had quite a lot of variety with the music there. I don't know whether they've aged well, to be fair, but it's still there. They were quite cool. The music doesn't try to become anything cinematic or orchestral, but it leans towards some sort of mechanical intensity. And again, it's just one of those things that gives Ridge Racer its identity across all the other racers, and the music makes you feel like this is what speed sounds like, and it tries to help you get into the rhythm of the race as well, with timing your drifts for instance, and when to use your boost. I suppose you could look at this brief look at Ridge Racer 2 on the PSP as an extension of a review of the original Ridge Racer that launched when the PSP came out. I mean, that too was a fantastic game, but at the end of the day, this was the ultimate package in my opinion. I mean, it has to be, with all the nostalgic tracks and music from the original Ridge Racer games that was in the PlayStation 1. But as I said, you know, this game blew me away. Actually, my first PSP game was Burnout Legends, and my cousin got Ridge Racer. So when we swapped the games and first time we met to showcase our PSPs, I thought this game blew Burnout Legends out of the water, which in itself is a great game anyways. I'll definitely will be reviewing that. But it definitely proved that handheld gaming didn't have to become some sort of compromise. Revisiting it today, that feeling still makes sense, where the graphics were incredibly ambitious, the track design remains elegant, the gameplay systems still reward precision and rhythm. It didn't chase realism, it didn't pretend to simulate motorsport, but it committed to speed, and that commitment is why Ridge Racer 2 works, and it wasn't just a technical achievement. I felt that Namco really allowed for this game to showcase the power of the PSP, and it showed that this was the moment where portable gaming started to really feel like console gaming. And even now, it still feels fast. Thank you for watching the video. Smash the like button and subscribe if you want to see more reviews.